Are you ready to transform how you face life's most challenging moments? Imagine this, you're in a high-pressure situation. Emotions are rising, the pressure is building, and everything feels like it's spiraling out of control. What do you do? Freeze, react impulsively, or do you remain composed, grounded, and make clear-headed decisions? Here's the truth, most people react to pressure. They panic. They let emotions rule their actions. But the few who train their minds, they take control. They don't just manage chaos, they master it. This isn't a story about how to stay calm for a few minutes in the heat of the moment. This audiobook will teach you how to train your mind to stay in control, consistently. Because mental strength isn't a trait you're born with, it's a skill you can develop. And today, we're going to begin that journey. So ask yourself, what would it feel like to never let pressure defeat you again? To know that when life throws challenges your way, you can face them with clarity, resilience, and control. That's exactly what you're about to discover. Chapter 1. When your inner game winning starts on the inside, before anything in your life changes, your career, your relationships, your habits, the battle begins in your mind. And yet, most people overlook this foundational truth. They try to fix the external, but fail to address the internal. The real secret to success is mental training. We've all been there, facing a challenge and feeling the weight of the pressure bearing down. It's in those moments where our true nature is exposed. Most of us don't lose because we're weak. We lose because we're untrained. It happens quietly. It's the moment when doubt creeps in, when emotions hijack our judgment, when hesitation replaces decisive action. By the time we react to the external situation, we've already lost the internal battle. The real game is won within your mind, long before the situation ever plays out. And here's the uncomfortable truth. If your inner world is unstable, no strategy, no plan, no external solution will save you. Training your mind is foundational. So, what exactly is the inner game? It's your mental framework, the system that drives your thoughts, emotions, and decisions. It's the foundation that supports everything you do. If your inner game is weak, even small challenges will feel overwhelming. If it's strong, even chaos becomes manageable. But here's the kicker, training your mind is not optional. It's not just about fixing bad habits. It's about retraining your thoughts, reactions, and behaviors. It's about mastering the pause, that space between stimulus and response. It's about building a system that doesn't just react, but responds deliberately. Most people live in reaction mode. They respond to everything with the same urgency, the same intensity, the same emotional reaction. This is dangerous. Reaction mode is where your standards drop, your decisions become impulsive, and your actions spiral out of control. But the trained mind pauses. In that pause, power is born. Winning your inner game means taking back control. It's about organizing your emotions, creating space between external events and your response to them. It's about choosing to act instead of being dragged by the tide of emotions. The pause is everything. Imagine what life would be like if you could stay calm in the midst of chaos, if you could observe your emotions without being controlled by them, if you could choose your response, no matter the situation. But that ability isn't a gift you're born with. It's a skill that's built through consistent practice and mental training. So how do we train the inner game? Step 1, awareness. You can't control what you don't notice. Most people don't notice their inner dialogue, the thoughts that flood their minds under pressure. They don't notice the tension in their body when stress arises. Training begins with awareness. It's the first act of discipline. And the moment you notice your inner state, you can begin to change it. That is the first step to control. Step 2, pause and observe. The next time you feel yourself reacting, whether it's anger, frustration, anxiety, or even excitement, instead of immediately acting on those feelings, pause. Give yourself a moment. Ask yourself, what would a controlled response look like right now? This pause creates space, and that space gives you the power to choose. The moment you stop reacting impulsively, you gain leverage. You stop surrendering control to external forces, emotions, circumstances, other people, and you take ownership of your response. It's a small shift, but it's the difference between winning and losing the inner game. Step 3. Build your standards. A trained mind operates based on standards. Standards are the rules you set for yourself, regardless of how you feel. For example, you don't yell when you're angry. You don't rush decisions when you're uncomfortable. You don't act impulsively when you're frustrated. These standards aren't just guidelines, they're non-negotiable rules you follow, no matter what's happening around you. Training is about consistency. It's about showing up day after day and choosing to act according to your standards, not your emotions. Pause for reflection. By now, you've begun to see how crucial the inner game is. Most people never win because they never train their minds. Mental training is the foundation of everything. You cannot build a successful life without it, but where do we go from here? In the next chapter, we'll dive into how to choose discipline over feelings and why relying on emotions is one of the quickest ways to lose. Chapter 2. Discipline over feelings: what happens when you let your emotions control your actions. You already know that emotions are powerful forces. They can make you feel on top of the world one moment and like you're drowning in despair the next. But here's the catch: emotions are unreliable. When you rely on your feelings to guide your decisions, you're setting yourself up for failure. Why? Because feelings are like waves. They come and go, unpredictable and out of your control. If you let them dictate your actions, you're going to find yourself adrift in a sea of inconsistency. Let me ask you this: how often do you find yourself waking up and thinking, "I don't feel like doing this today," or "I'm not in the mood for it"? It's so easy to fall into the trap of letting feelings decide if we act. But that habit is dangerous, and it's what keeps most people stuck in cycles of procrastination, underachievement, and regret. Here's the truth: relying on how you feel is one of the fastest ways to lose in life. Instead, the real foundation of success is discipline. Discipline is freedom. That might sound like a contradiction, right? How can discipline possibly be freeing? Well, think about it like this. Discipline removes choice from moments when choice weakens you. When you rely on your feelings, every action becomes a debate. Do I feel like doing this? Do I have the energy? Is this going to be worth it? The truth is, when you make decisions based on emotions, you create a mental tug-of-war that drains your energy and weakens your resolve. But a disciplined mind doesn't need to debate these questions. It follows standards. Think of it like this: you don't brush your teeth because you feel like it. You do it because it's a rule, a standard that you follow no matter what. You don't decide whether to stop at a red light based on your mood. You just do it because that's the standard. The same principle applies to mental discipline. When you set standards for yourself, you don't wait for motivation to show up. You simply act, and the more consistently you act according to your standards, the more you train yourself to be disciplined, even when you don't feel like it. Feelings are information, not instructions. One of the most critical shifts in your thinking is this: feelings are information, not instructions. They tell you how you're feeling in the moment, but they do not tell you what to do. When your feelings start to dictate your actions, you end up making impulsive decisions, decisions that don't align with your long-term goals or your values. Here's the key: strong minds separate emotion from execution. When you feel resistance, when you feel fear, or even when you feel tired, you don't stop, you keep going. You feel the discomfort, but you act anyway. You don't let the feelings control you, you control the feelings. This is why discipline is so powerful. It's not about ignoring your emotions. It's about acknowledging them and deciding how to respond, rather than letting them dictate your actions. The secret to mental strength: consistency. You see, progress doesn't come from feeling motivated every single day. It comes from showing up, even when you don't feel like it. When you rely on motivation, you're setting yourself up for inconsistency. Motivation fades, and when it does, you're left with a void, unable to act. But discipline doesn't fade, it endures. This is why discipline is your most powerful tool. It's not about forcing yourself to do things you hate. It's about creating habits that become automatic. You don't need to convince yourself to do the right thing every time. The right thing becomes a part of who you are. Consistency beats emotion every time. When you feel tired, when you feel overwhelmed, when you feel like quitting, that's when discipline matters the most. This is the true test of your character. Can you keep going when the emotional high fades? Can you stick to your standards even when it's hard? When you build the muscle of discipline, you stop asking yourself, do I feel like doing this? Instead, you ask, is this aligned with my standards? You take the emotion out of it, and suddenly life becomes simpler. This isn't about being perfect. It's about being reliable, reliable under stress, reliable when things get tough, reliable when motivation disappears. Step 1. Break the cycle of indecision. The constant internal debates, should I do this, or should I wait? Those little moments of indecision are energy drains. They drain your mental resources and make it harder to stay consistent. This is why setting standards is so crucial. When you set clear standards for your behavior, you don't waste mental energy debating every action. You just act. Think of it like having a rule book that guides you. You don't need to check with your emotions every time, you just follow the playbook. And that's where discipline kicks in. Step 2. Build momentum through consistent action. Discipline creates momentum. And momentum is what carries you forward, even when motivation is nowhere to be found. Have you ever noticed how much easier it is to keep going once you've started? This is because momentum compounds. The more you stick to your standards, the more reliable you become, and the more consistent you are, the less energy it takes to act. Once you build that momentum, it becomes a self-reinforcing loop. You don't need to motivate yourself anymore. The consistency itself becomes the motivation. Step 3. Protect your energy from distractions. The truth is, distractions are everywhere. They pull you away from your goals, from your standards, and from your long-term vision. This is why a disciplined mind is so powerful. It protects your energy by cutting out the noise. When you don't let distractions control your time and attention, you have more energy to devote to what really matters. The more you protect your energy, the more you stay aligned with your standards, and the more momentum you build. What happens when you choose discipline over feelings? You become unstoppable, not because you never experience fear, frustration, or doubt, but because you choose to act despite those feelings. You build mental strength that doesn't fade when emotions do. You build consistency that outlasts temporary discomfort, and you create a life of reliability where you know that you can handle whatever comes your way because you've trained yourself to stay disciplined, even when it's tough. Stay with me because in the next chapter, we'll explore why staying calm under pressure becomes your ultimate competitive advantage. Chapter 3. Stay calm under pressure. What does pressure reveal about you? Pressure doesn't create weaknesses, it exposes them. Have you ever felt the heat of a moment when everything seems to be falling apart? That feeling of being overwhelmed when things are spiraling out of control. Here's the harsh truth. Most people react in those moments without thinking, driven by panic, frustration, or fear. They believe that rushing through the pressure will somehow make things better, but more often than not, it only makes the situation worse. Here's the secret. Calm is not a trait you're born with. It's a skill, and like any skill, it can be trained. The myth of calm as a personality trait. Too many people believe that calmness is something you're either born with or without. They look at others who seem unshaken during chaos and think they must just be naturally calm. But that's not true. Calmness is a skill that comes with practice and awareness, and it's one of the most powerful tools you can possess in life. When pressure hits, your body reacts, your heart races, your thoughts become frantic. And if you don't notice these changes early, your mind will lose control before you even realize it. This is where the pause becomes so crucial. The pause is where power lives. Have you ever had a moment where everything seemed to move too fast, but you somehow found the clarity to think through it? That clarity didn't come from forcing yourself to think faster. It came from slowing down. When chaos increases, an untrained mind tends to speed up. It tries to process more, juggle more, make decisions quicker. This rush can feel like power, but it's actually a trap. Speed without clarity is dangerous. You make mistakes, you lose control, and you regret the decisions you've made. A trained mind, however, does the opposite. It slows down the moment. It widens its awareness instead of narrowing it. It stabilizes before taking action. That's the key. Calm doesn't mean the absence of emotion. It means that your emotions don't control you. And that's where your power lies, in controlling how you respond. How to stay calm when your body wants to panic. Imagine this. You're in a high-stakes situation, whether it's a business deal, a tough conversation, or an unexpected emergency. Your heart starts pounding, your muscles tighten, your thoughts race faster than your ability to process them. If you don't catch it early, your body will hijack your mind, and you'll react before you've had a chance to think. The first step in staying calm is awareness. You have to notice the physical signs that you're getting stressed. Your breath shortens. Your muscles tense, your mind starts to race. The moment you notice this, you can interrupt the process. The pause is key. Before you do anything, before you react, pause, take a breath, lower your shoulders, relax your jaw. These physical actions signal to your mind that you are not in danger. Once your body settles, your mind follows suit. This is not passive, it's strategic. Pause to regain control. Speed versus clarity. Why slow is often better. In a world that constantly pushes for speed, it's easy to think that quick action equals strength. But when you act impulsively, when you react without thinking, you lose clarity. And that loss of clarity often leads to poor decisions. Calm allows you to see what matters, while panic clouds your judgment. When others are rushing around in a frenzy, trying to make quick decisions, the calm person is the one who takes a step back, observes, and decides what really matters. That person becomes a leader, not because they're louder or more dramatic, but because they stay steady while others falter. Timing is everything. The trained mind knows that sometimes the best decision is not to act immediately, it's to wait. That's the secret to clarity under pressure. In chaotic situations, the instinct to act can feel overwhelming, but rushing decisions often leads to poor outcomes. Waiting, on the other hand, gives you the space to assess the situation clearly, to think through your options, to avoid knee-jerk reactions that could derail everything. This ability to wait for clarity is often mistaken for indecision, but it's actually a powerful form of control. It's the difference between reacting emotionally and acting with precision, and it's one of the greatest advantages in any high-pressure environment, whether in business, relationships, or life in general. The importance of emotional regulation. When the heat is on, your emotions can get the best of you. Anger, fear, frustration, all of these can cloud your thinking and distort your perception of what's happening. But here's the thing, strong emotions don't have to dictate your behavior. You can feel anger without acting on it. You can feel fear without retreating. You can feel uncertainty without freezing. This is the magic of emotional regulation. The goal is not to suppress emotions, that's not healthy. The goal is to acknowledge your emotions without letting them control your actions. When you do that, you create a sense of calm that allows you to think clearly, make decisions confidently, and act with intention. The power of staying neutral. When pressure mounts, the tendency is to react, but reactive behavior drains energy and loses control. Staying neutral, not engaging emotionally, not rushing in, is what gives you leverage. When you stay calm, you hold the frame. You hold the power to decide when and how to engage. And in high-pressure situations, that's the real power. People around you will often escalate, looking for a reaction. But if you don't give it to them, you stop the escalation and regain control of the situation. Stability is your greatest asset. In times of chaos, those who stay calm become anchors. They provide stability for themselves and for those around them, not because they're perfect or emotionless, but because they've trained themselves to control their reactions and stay composed. That stability is magnetic. People respect it, they trust it, and over time, this quiet form of leadership becomes one of your greatest assets. Remember this, calm doesn't mean you don't feel anything. It means you've trained yourself to manage those feelings without letting them manage you. The goal is not to eliminate pressure, but to increase your capacity to handle it without losing clarity or composure. In the next chapter, you'll learn how mastering your reactions gives you more power than you realize, and why the best leaders are those who control their responses instead of reacting impulsively. Chapter 4. Control your reactions. Why are reactions so powerful? Reactions can feel like second nature. They seem automatic, beyond our control. But the truth is, reactions are habits, and like any habit, they can be retrained. The problem is that most people think of reactions as a sign of authenticity. They believe that reacting quickly means they're being real, that it's a form of self-expression. But in reality, reaction is surrender. The moment you react to something without thought, you hand control over to whatever triggered you. It could be a rude comment, a delay, a challenging situation, anything. And when that happens, you lose your power. Reactions versus responses. The crucial difference: when you react automatically, you're responding without choice. You're essentially letting the situation dictate your actions. But responses, on the other hand, create space between the trigger and your reaction. A response allows you to make a deliberate decision rather than just following your impulses. This space is where your true power lies. Let's break this down. When you're triggered, whether it's by someone's words, an unexpected problem, or a tough situation, you have two options. 1. React. Reacting often leads to escalation. You fire back a response before considering whether it's helpful or even appropriate. You may regret your words or actions later. In the heat of the moment, your reaction may seem justified, but you've given up control. 2. Respond. Responding gives you the opportunity to think before acting. You pause, you breathe, and then you act based on your standards, not your emotions. Response equals control. The magic of the pause. Have you ever had a moment where you wanted to lash out, but instead you paused, thought about it, and chose a more measured response? That pause was where you regained control. It's in the pause that you shift from being reactive to being powerful. At first, this feels uncomfortable. The urge to react can feel intense. Your mind might tell you that you need to speak, defend, explain, or prove something. But the key is to pause, observe your thoughts, and then ask yourself one simple question: what would a controlled response look like right now? That question alone shifts power back to you. You don't have to suppress your emotions. You simply choose to respond in a way that aligns with your values and your long-term goals. Why speed often works against you. When we're triggered, our natural instinct is to act quickly. We think that acting fast will make us feel better, that it will resolve the situation. But in truth, acting without thinking almost always makes things worse. Let's use an example. Imagine you're in a meeting and someone challenges you or says something critical. What do you want to do? Defend yourself, argue back, react immediately. In those moments, the quicker you act, the more likely it is that you're responding emotionally. That's when mistakes happen, when we act impulsively because we're trying to make the discomfort go away immediately. Calmness, however, slows things down. It allows you to observe the situation, understand your emotions, and choose a response that doesn't jeopardize your integrity. How reactions shape your identity. Your identity is shaped by the way you handle challenges. When you constantly react emotionally, you reinforce a habit of being out of control. But when you respond thoughtfully, you begin to define yourself as someone who is deliberate, composed, and powerful under pressure. Here's a question to ask yourself: who are you when things don't go your way? Are you someone who reacts impulsively, or someone who takes a moment to pause, think, and then respond? By training yourself to control your reactions, you'll start to develop an identity as someone who can stay steady in any situation. This identity doesn't require perfection. It requires consistency, the power of restraint. It's easy to think that power comes from speaking your mind, reacting quickly, or defending yourself, but true power often comes from restraint. Restraint means holding back, not out of fear, but because you understand that your response can be more powerful when it's intentional. For example, in a heated conversation, not engaging with every provocation can be far more powerful than arguing every point. By not reacting to every little thing, you demonstrate self-control and strength. You show that you can hold your ground without being easily moved by emotions. The danger of emotional shortcuts. When emotions rise, your mind often looks for shortcuts. It tries to make decisions quickly, but those decisions are almost always biased. Whether it's anger, frustration, or anxiety, these emotions distort your perception of the situation and cause you to make snap judgments that may not serve you in the long run. This is why training your reactions is so important. When you react based on emotions, you're relying on shortcuts. You're not seeing the full picture. By taking a pause and creating space for yourself, You give your mind the opportunity to think more clearly and make better decisions. Why people who control their reactions are harder to manipulate. People who are constantly reacting are easier to manipulate. They reveal their triggers. They wear their emotions on their sleeves, and that makes them predictable. When you're predictable, people can push your buttons to get the response they want, but people who are calm and controlled are harder to manipulate. Why? Because they don't react based on emotion. They don't get easily provoked or swept up in the moment. They maintain their power by not allowing others to dictate how they respond, training your mind to observe, not react. You don't need to suppress your emotions. The goal is not to push your feelings aside, but to observe them without acting on them impulsively. When you observe your emotions instead of reacting to them, you start to regain control. In fact, one of the best ways to train yourself is to start labeling your emotions when they arise. I'm feeling angry right now. I'm feeling frustrated. Labeling your emotions gives you distance. It creates space between what you're feeling and how you choose to act. It's a way to say, I notice this feeling, but it doesn't control me. Mastering reactions, a lifetime of practice. The truth is, mastering your reactions doesn't happen overnight. It's not about trying to be perfect. It's about building small habits of control, day in and day out. It's about making a decision to pause before you react, to think before you speak, to choose your responses deliberately. This is not an easy path. It's a path of constant training. But once you master it, you'll find that your ability to control situations, handle pressure, and lead others becomes exponentially more powerful. And over time, your identity will shift. You'll become the person who doesn't react impulsively, but who responds thoughtfully and strategically. In the next chapter, we'll explore the power of mental endurance and how staying in discomfort builds unbreakable strength. That concludes Chapter 4. When you're ready, just let me know, and we'll move on to Chapter 5, where we will dive deeper into building mental endurance and why it's key to long-term success. Chapter 5, Build Mental Endurance. What is mental endurance? Mental endurance is not about pushing yourself to the absolute limit for a short burst of time. It's about staying power, the ability to endure discomfort over a long period without giving up. It's the difference between those who can handle a sprint and those who can withstand a marathon. So many people fail because they quit when things get uncomfortable. They don't lack the ability to succeed. They lack the ability to stay the course when things stop feeling exciting, when motivation wanes, or when progress seems slow. Mental endurance is about finding the strength to keep going when the going gets tough. Why people quit when discomfort rises. The truth is, most of us are wired to avoid discomfort. When something feels too hard, too painful, or too frustrating, our first instinct is to seek relief. And that relief could come in many forms: distraction, avoidance, or giving up altogether. But when you continuously avoid discomfort, you train your mind to retreat every time things get tough. In contrast, those who build mental endurance don't avoid discomfort. They don't seek instant relief. Instead, they learn to stay present, even when it's hard. They endure the discomfort because they understand that growth only happens outside your comfort zone, the danger of seeking immediate relief. When discomfort appears, an untrained mind sees it as a sign that something is wrong. This is too hard, it says. I should stop. But that's not the truth. Discomfort isn't a signal to stop. It's a signal that you're on the path to growth. If you consistently stop every time discomfort shows up, you train your mind to associate effort with pain and growth with suffering. You'll end up sabotaging your own success because you'll always seek comfort over challenge. Training endurance through small discomforts. You don't build mental endurance by trying to handle huge amounts of stress all at once. It's the small, consistent challenges that train your mind over time. Just like physical endurance is built through consistent exercise, mental endurance is built through repeated exposure to discomfort, small daily challenges that you choose not to avoid. For example, it could be something simple like sticking to a daily routine, even when you don't feel like it. It could be pushing through the last few minutes of a workout, even when your muscles are screaming. Or it could be working through a task you find boring, but doing it anyway because you know it's necessary. mental endurance, the ability to stay when others leave. The difference between those who succeed and those who fail often comes down to one simple thing: the ability to stay when others leave. People who fail quit when the discomfort gets too much. They bail out at the first sign of difficulty. But people who succeed, they stay, they endure, they choose to continue when the going gets tough. They don't wait for relief to come. They create relief by continuing, pushing forward, and facing the discomfort head-on. This is what separates those who achieve extraordinary things from those who never quite make it. The ones who stay are the ones who build momentum, who keep moving forward even when progress feels slow. Mental endurance, a gradual, cumulative process. Endurance doesn't happen overnight. It doesn't come from one heroic effort. It's built gradually, through small decisions made over time. Every time you choose to endure a little longer, you're building your mental endurance. Each small victory, sticking with the task, facing the discomfort, choosing to keep going adds up. The key is not to push yourself to your breaking point, but to stay just a little longer than you would naturally want to. Each time you push through a little bit more, you teach your mind that discomfort is not dangerous. You teach it that it can handle more than it thought it could. The link between discomfort and growth. Here's the thing about discomfort. It's not your enemy, it's the key to your growth. Mental endurance doesn't just help you push through difficult situations, it teaches you to reframe discomfort as a tool for growth. Think about it. Every time you feel discomfort, you have a choice. You can run from it or you can lean into it. Those who lean into discomfort are the ones who grow. It's not the people who are comfortable who succeed. It's the ones who face the discomfort and keep moving forward. They train themselves to stay in the discomfort long enough for it to become something manageable, something that no longer overwhelms them. Building endurance outside of work. Mental endurance isn't just about work. It's about how you handle life's challenges. Whether it's dealing with personal setbacks, navigating conflict in relationships, or dealing with unexpected life events, mental endurance is the ability to keep going despite the obstacles in your path. This is why building endurance is so important. Life doesn't get easier. It doesn't get less stressful. But as you build your endurance, you'll find that you're able to handle the chaos, the difficulties, and the challenges with more stability and less stress. The importance of discomfort in relationships. Mental endurance isn't just about personal growth, it's also vital in relationships. Think about it. Relationships can be unpredictable, they can cause emotional ups and downs, and they can bring challenges that you didn't see coming. But someone with mental endurance will be able to weather these emotional storms without losing their composure. They don't react in the heat of the moment. Instead, they take a step back, breathe, and choose a response that's in line with their values. They don't let discomfort cause them to shut down or retreat. They stay engaged because they know that growth often happens in those difficult, uncomfortable moments. How mental endurance improves decision-making. Here's an interesting twist. Mental endurance actually improves your decision-making. When you're trained to stay with discomfort, your mind doesn't rush to conclusions. Instead, it waits for clarity. When things get uncomfortable, people often feel the urge to act quickly. They make snap decisions to relieve the discomfort. But someone with mental endurance knows how to tolerate discomfort without rushing. This patience allows them to make better decisions over time. It allows them to think clearly instead of reacting emotionally or impulsively. The connection between consistency and mental endurance. Consistency is the bedrock of mental endurance. It's about showing up day in and day out, even when you don't feel like it. Consistency is the key to building endurance, and it's what separates those who succeed from those who don't. The more consistent you are in facing discomfort, the easier it becomes to handle bigger challenges. It's all about creating momentum. When you consistently face discomfort and push through it, you begin to build an identity as someone who is mentally tough, someone who doesn't quit, someone who stays steady no matter the circumstances. How mental endurance changes your life. When you've built mental endurance, life stops feeling like an overwhelming series of unpredictable events. You stop reacting to every little thing. Instead, you take control. You handle life's ups and downs with more grace and clarity. You feel steady, even when the world around you is chaotic. In fact, mental endurance changes your entire relationship with life. You stop fearing discomfort because you know you can handle it. You stop avoiding challenges because you know they're the pathway to growth. In the next chapter, we'll explore how to think clearly in chaos and why clear thinking is a critical skill in high-pressure situations. Chapter 6, Think Clearly in Chaos. Chaos doesn't destroy outcomes. Confusion does. It's easy to assume that chaos is the enemy. When things feel out of control, it's tempting to believe that disorder around you is the source of your problems. But the truth is, chaos itself doesn't destroy your ability to succeed. Confusion does. Chaos is a natural part of life. You can't avoid it. Whether it's at work, in relationships, or in your own mind, chaos is inevitable. What matters is how you respond to it. When things get chaotic, your ability to think clearly, to slow down and focus, becomes your greatest asset. This chapter is all about learning how to keep your mind clear when everything around you is a mess. The true danger of chaos. Let's define chaos. It doesn't have to be a massive, life-altering disaster. Chaos can be as simple as too many tasks piling up at once, a flurry of conflicting opinions, or a constant bombardment of information. It's all those things that make your mind feel cluttered and overloaded. Now, chaos doesn't destroy your outcomes, but confusion does. When your mind is clouded by confusion, when you can't separate important tasks from distractions, when you're overwhelmed by too many voices or ideas, you lose the ability to make decisions, to act with clarity, and to stay on course. And when your thinking is clouded, your actions are too. That's when things start to go wrong. But clarity is a skill. It can be trained. How the untrained mind reacts to chaos. The natural instinct for many people when faced with chaos is to speed up. You feel the pressure rising, and you think, I need to act now. The untrained mind tries to solve everything at once, thinking that more action equals more control. But here's the problem. More input doesn't equal more clarity. In fact, the more you try to do when you're overwhelmed, the more chaotic things become. It's like trying to clean a room by tossing everything into the middle and hoping for the best. You're just adding to the mess. The trained mind slows down when chaos increases. The key to clear thinking in chaos is slowing down. In the face of chaos, the trained mind slows things down. When everything is spinning around you, instead of speeding up and reacting to every stimulus, you need to take a moment to breathe, reduce your inputs, and focus. This doesn't mean freezing or doing nothing. It means choosing what to pay attention to, deciding where your focus should go, and eliminating distractions. This ability to narrow your attention to what matters most is what makes the difference between those who survive chaos and those who collapse under it. Resisting the urge to solve everything at once. One of the biggest mistakes people make when things get chaotic is the urge to solve everything immediately. You feel pressure, and you want to do something, anything, to get control of the situation. But here's the thing, you don't need to solve everything at once. You don't need to make everything clear right now. In fact, solving everything at once is one of the fastest ways to make things worse. When you're overwhelmed, you're not thinking clearly. You're reacting emotionally. Instead, take one step at a time. Prioritize the most important thing first. Once that's handled, move on to the next. By narrowing your focus and addressing things in sequence, you not only create clarity, but you also keep yourself from getting bogged down by everything at once. Clarity through restraint. Clarity isn't about adding more information. It's about eliminating noise, and one of the best ways to do this is through restraint. In moments of chaos, you don't need more input, you need fewer distractions. You need to cut out the things that don't directly contribute to the solution. This restraint is a conscious decision to step back, assess, and focus on what truly matters. For example, when a difficult decision arises, the untrained mind might feel overwhelmed by all the potential options and conflicting advice. But a trained mind will take a moment to pause, eliminate unnecessary options, and focus on the core facts that will drive the decision forward, clearing the mind by reducing external noise. One of the easiest ways to regain clarity in chaos is to reduce external noise. When you're in the middle of a chaotic situation, your mind is like a radio station picking up static. Every new bit of information or input adds to the static. To clear the mind, you need to filter out the irrelevant noise. This can be done by limiting external distractions, like turning off notifications, setting boundaries with people who might add unnecessary stress, or blocking out interruptions. The less information your brain has to process at once, the clearer you'll be able to think. Give your brain room to breathe. The power of the pause. The pause is where the magic happens. It's where you regain control, collect your thoughts, and choose your next step deliberately. This pause isn't about inaction. It's about observing and choosing instead of reacting automatically. When chaos strikes, the first instinct is often to act quickly, to solve the problem right away. But the pause allows you to make better decisions. It gives you the space to choose the most effective action instead of just reacting to whatever appears most urgent. How to create clarity through questioning. Another powerful tool for gaining clarity in chaotic situations is asking the right questions. When everything feels overwhelming, ask yourself, what do I actually know? This question helps you focus on the facts instead of assumptions. What can I control right now? This brings the situation back into your control, focusing your attention on what's actionable. What's the most important thing I can do right now? This keeps you from getting lost in irrelevant details. These simple questions can cut through the confusion and bring you back to clarity. They allow you to make better decisions and take intentional actions that will lead you out of chaos. The role of emotional regulation in clarity. One of the key components of clarity in chaos is emotional regulation. Strong emotions like fear, anger, or excitement can cloud judgment and distort reality. In chaotic situations, emotions often exaggerate the perceived danger, making things feel more urgent than they actually are. But clarity doesn't mean suppressing emotions. It means preventing emotions from hijacking your decisions. You can acknowledge your feelings without letting them define your actions. The ability to stay grounded despite emotional turmoil is what separates clear thinkers from those who get lost in the chaos, making decisions with clarity, not emotion. When chaos hits, many people make decisions based on their emotions rather than clear thought. Rushing to conclusions, overreacting, or jumping to decisions in the heat of the moment almost always leads to mistakes. But clear thinking allows you to make decisions with deliberation. You don't need to feel calm in order to act decisively. You just need to create the space to think clearly, even when emotions are running high. The importance of patience during chaos. In chaotic situations, there's often a rush to act, but acting prematurely, without a clear understanding of what's going on, can make things worse. Patience is key. Being able to stay still for a moment, to wait for the right timing, is what allows you to make decisions that are thoughtful, not rushed. Waiting gives you the time to see the bigger picture and make the best possible choice. In the next chapter, we'll dive into how to control your reactions and why mastering your responses can change the way you interact with the world. That's the end of Chapter 6. When you're ready, just let me know and we'll continue with Chapter 7, where we explore the power of your inner voice, your self-talk, and how it shapes your actions, decisions, and mindset. Chapter 7. Train your self-talk. The voice inside your head never stops speaking. It's there when you wake up. It's there when you face challenges. It's there when you make mistakes. This voice is constantly narrating your life, but here's the truth. Most people never question what their inner voice is saying. That voice is shaping your experience, but it's not necessarily telling you the truth. Too often, the voice in your head is negative, chaotic, and self-defeating. If left unchecked, it can dictate your decisions and actions, pulling you further from your goals, from the person you want to become. Training your self-talk is not about being blindly positive. It's about being precise and intentional with the language you use to speak to yourself. The way you speak to yourself is the foundation of your actions, your confidence, and your resilience. Untrained self-talk is emotional. Let's break this down. Untrained self-talk is often emotional. It exaggerates, it generalizes, it makes everything feel like a crisis. I always mess this up. This is impossible. I'm not built for this. Do these phrases sound familiar? They feel natural because they reflect the emotional state we often find ourselves in. But here's the catch, they're not helping. These words don't just reflect your feelings, they reinforce them, making them stronger. That's why you end up stuck. The more you say these things, the more your mind believes them. And when your mind believes these negative patterns, it reacts accordingly, with fear, self-doubt, and hesitation. You collapse before you even try. The trained mind speaks with precision. Now, let's flip the script. A trained mind doesn't speak in absolutes, it speaks with instructions. Instead of "I always mess this up," it says, "This is challenging, but it's manageable." Instead of "This is impossible," it says, "This requires patience and focus." It's not about ignoring the difficulty. It's about reframing the situation with a mindset that empowers you to take action, to move forward despite the struggle. The power of language. The words you use shape the way you experience the world. Language matters. It doesn't just narrate your actions, it instructs your body and mind on how to respond. When your self-talk is unstable or chaotic, your mind becomes unstable. It can't make decisions because it's too busy reacting to the noise inside your head. Think about it. A harsh inner voice creates tension. A defeated voice drains your energy. A voice full of urgency makes you panic. But a clear and firm voice provides direction. It keeps you grounded, focused, and in control. Self-talk is not just about positive thinking, it's about conditioning. Many people confuse self-talk with simple, positive thinking. They think they need to be relentlessly positive all the time, but that's not the goal. Positive thinking without action is just wishful thinking. Training your self-talk is about conditioning your mind to focus on what's required, not on what's comfortable. When you tell yourself, "I can handle this," it conditions your nervous system to take action instead of retreating. When you say, "This is a challenge, not a crisis," it helps you face difficulties with a calm and deliberate mindset, training your mind before pressure arrives. One of the key things to understand is that you don't rise to the occasion under pressure. You fall to your default self-talk. When the heat is on, when emotions are high, when the pressure is building, your brain doesn't have the time to think through an entirely new mindset. Instead, it will rely on the self-talk you've been rehearsing all along. That's why it's critical to train your self-talk before the pressure arrives. You don't wait for the heat of the moment to suddenly decide to be calm, clear, and precise. You train your inner voice to speak like that on a daily basis, so when the pressure builds, your mind already knows how to respond. The impact of self-talk on your actions. Your inner voice shapes your behavior. It creates your identity. If your self-talk is focused on your limitations, on what you can't do, it will drive you away from your goals. If your self-talk is rooted in self-doubt, you will hold yourself back. But when you speak to yourself like a leader, like someone who can handle challenges, your actions will align with that identity. You'll take risks, stay resilient, and push through obstacles with confidence. The importance of tone. It's not just the content of your self-talk that matters, it's the tone. Your tone sets the emotional direction for everything you do. A harsh tone creates tension. An urgent tone creates panic. A defeated tone drains energy. But a trained tone is firm, clear, and neutral. It acknowledges challenges without giving them control. It doesn't shout or demand. It guides, instructs, and steers you toward action. When your tone is neutral and clear, it has a calming effect on your nervous system. You stop feeding the emotional intensity, and your mind shifts to clarity and control, self-talk and identity. What you tell yourself repeatedly becomes who you believe you are. If you tell yourself, "I am disciplined," you will find ways to align your actions with that belief. If you tell yourself, "I am reactive," you will continue to behave impulsively. The more you repeat the behavior you want to reinforce, the stronger that identity becomes. And the stronger your identity, the more reliable your actions will be, correcting behavior instead of insulting yourself. Another powerful aspect of self-talk is learning to separate performance from identity. When you fail or make a mistake, the untrained mind often falls into self-criticism. "I always mess this up. I'm a failure." But that's not the answer. Criticizing yourself doesn't motivate you, it only drains your energy. Instead, train your self-talk to focus on correcting the behavior without attaching it to your worth as a person. For example, instead of saying, "I always mess this up," say, "What can I learn from this? How can I do it better next time?" This shift is critical. It's about learning from failure, not internalizing it. It's about seeing setbacks as opportunities to improve, not as proof of your inadequacy. Mastering self-talk under pressure. In the heat of the moment, when emotions are high and reactions are urgent, it's easy to slip into negative self-talk. But this is where training pays off. When you're feeling anxious, stressed, or fearful, your self-talk can either propel you toward clarity or pull you deeper into panic. Training your self-talk allows you to stay grounded and make better decisions under pressure. When you notice your self-talk spiraling, take a deep breath and intervene. Ask yourself, what do I need to focus on right now? What's the next step? What's required of me in this moment? By creating a small pause between feeling and reaction, you regain control over your mind, your emotions, and your actions. In the next chapter, we'll explore how showing up consistently, no matter the circumstances, becomes the foundation for all success. Chapter 8. Show up no matter what. Success doesn't come to those who wait for perfect conditions. It comes to those who show up, day after day, regardless of how they feel, what challenges arise, or whether they're motivated or not. Most people fail not because they lack talent, not because they don't have the skills, but because they simply disappear when things get tough. They disappear when motivation fades. They disappear when progress slows down. They disappear when effort no longer feels exciting. But here's the hard truth. Showing up consistently, even when it's hard, is the rarest skill. Showing up is not as simple as it sounds. We often wait for the right moment, the right energy, or the right inspiration. But those conditions don't come around every day. They're unreliable, and basing your actions on them will only lead to inconsistency. The reality is, life doesn't wait for you to feel ready, and neither should you. Showing up means acting without emotional permission. It means continuing even when progress feels slow and the rewards aren't immediate. Showing up means staying engaged when there's no instant gratification. It means doing the work whether or not you're in the mood. This is not just about physical presence. It's about mental and emotional presence. It's about keeping your mind focused, even when distractions arise. It's about sticking to your goals when obstacles show up and when the path isn't as clear as you expected. The power of consistency over motivation. Here's where the magic lies. Motivation is unreliable. Some days you feel it, some days you don't, but consistency is reliable. When you show up because it's what you do, not because you feel like it, you've turned a small action into a habit, and habits compound. When you make showing up a part of your identity, it becomes something you do automatically, not something you debate every time you face a challenge. It becomes part of who you are. You show up not because everything is aligned, but because that's what you've trained yourself to do. How consistency builds identity. When you show up every day, you begin to see yourself as someone who takes action, even when it's hard. That identity becomes your strength. You don't need to wait for motivation. You don't need to feel 100% confident. You don't need to wait for everything to feel perfect. You act because this is who you are, someone who shows up no matter what. The more you show up, the stronger that identity becomes. When you see yourself as someone who consistently follows through, absence feels uncomfortable. You don't need external pressure to get things done because you've created your own internal pressure. The danger of waiting for alignment. Most people wait for everything to feel right before they make their move. They wait for confidence to show up, for clarity to come, for motivation to kick in. But by waiting for those external conditions, they put off progress and end up trapped in a cycle of procrastination. Waiting for the perfect moment is a trap. If you wait for everything to line up perfectly, you'll never take action. The perfect moment never comes. But the moment you start showing up, regardless of the conditions, you create momentum. The simplicity of showing up. When you decide that showing up is non-negotiable, you take the decision-making out of the equation. You stop asking yourself, do I feel like it today? Instead, you ask, is this what I do? Yes or no, that question doesn't require emotion. It doesn't need motivation. It's just about following through with your commitment. This is where consistency becomes your superpower. When you show up without hesitation, you remove friction. You stop questioning your decisions. You just move forward. And once you create that momentum, it becomes easier to keep moving. The more you show up, the less resistance you face. The less resistance you face, the more consistent you become. The importance of routines. Showing up consistently doesn't always mean pushing yourself to your limits every day. It means creating routines that make showing up automatic. Routines are the backbone of consistency. They remove decision fatigue and take the emotional drama out of the equation. When you establish a routine, you don't need to think about whether you'll take action today. You've already decided. Routines protect consistency because they eliminate the need for constant decisions. Instead of wondering if you should work today, your routine just takes care of it for you. The power of small actions. Many people think they need to make huge leaps to see results, but small, consistent actions build momentum over time. It's the daily actions, repeated over and over, that compound into big results. You don't need to be perfect. You don't need to take massive steps every single day. What you need is to show up consistently, one step at a time, one day at a time, and eventually those small steps will take you places you couldn't have imagined when you first started. How showing up transforms your mindset. Showing up consistently does more than build momentum, it builds resilience. When you show up despite setbacks, despite how you feel, despite the uncertainty, you train your mind to expect progress rather than perfection. The more you show up, the more you trust yourself. Trust is built through action. It's not built by waiting for the perfect time or the perfect feeling. It's built through showing up, even when it's hard, even when you'd rather quit. And the best part, showing up transforms your confidence. You'll find that your confidence isn't based on external validation. It's not based on the success you achieve immediately. It's based on your ability to keep showing up, even when you're uncertain or tired or overwhelmed. That's the kind of confidence that lasts. The role of showing up in your long-term success. Showing up is the key to long-term success in anything you do. It's not about short bursts of motivation or excitement. It's about showing up day in and day out, no matter what the circumstances are. Success is a long game. And in that game, consistency is what wins. Those who show up consistently, even when it's hard, are the ones who eventually see the results they've been working toward. Consistency beats intensity. Many people start with great intensity but burn out quickly. They begin strong but can't keep up the pace. Consistency, on the other hand, is sustainable. It's not about pushing yourself to the limit all the time. It's about showing up with steady commitment, and that steady commitment over time leads to extraordinary results. It's not about being perfect. It's about being reliable. And being reliable in the long run will set you apart. Showing up and emotional regulation. When you show up every day, emotions start to lose their control over your actions. You'll find that when you feel tired, uncertain, or unmotivated, you can still take action because your commitment to showing up is stronger than your emotional state. You begin to act from your internal standards, not your external circumstances. And that is what builds resilience. Resilience is the ability to stay grounded in your values and actions, no matter what happens around you. The simplicity of consistency. The key takeaway is simple: show up no matter what. This might sound basic, but it's anything but simple. The truth is, it's the small, repeated actions that create massive results. It's the willingness to show up on the tough days, the mundane days, the days when motivation is nowhere to be found, that will carry you to success. When you make showing up a part of your identity, you'll realize something important. Success is not about waiting for the right moment. It's about making the moment right by showing up, regardless of how you feel. As you move forward, remember, showing up consistently is what creates momentum. It's what builds resilience, and it's what will help you conquer challenges and obstacles along the way. So show up, no excuses. No waiting for perfect conditions, just show up. In the next chapter, we'll explore how mental endurance, the ability to withstand discomfort, is the ultimate strength that allows you to persist through the toughest times. Chapter 9. Build mental endurance. Mental endurance is not about how hard you can push for a short period. It's about how long you can remain steady when discomfort lingers. The true test of your strength is not in how much you can take in the moment, but in your ability to keep going when the moment doesn't change, when the pressure doesn't let up. Most people can manage a sprint, but very few can endure the marathon of life. They burn bright in the beginning, full of motivation and energy, but when the novelty fades and the real challenge begins, they fall away. They quit when discomfort grows, when the rewards seem too far off, when things get harder than expected. But mental endurance is built in those moments, in the times when your initial burst of energy fades and you're left with only grit and determination. It's the ability to keep moving forward even when progress is slow, when the road gets rocky, and when every step feels heavier than the last. The discomfort is not a sign to quit, it's a sign of growth. The truth is, discomfort isn't an enemy, it's a teacher. It's the resistance that tells you you're stretching beyond your limits, growing and becoming stronger. The mind naturally wants to avoid discomfort. It seeks comfort, relaxation, and relief. But growth happens only when you push through discomfort, not around it. If you stop every time discomfort shows up, you train your mind to retreat at the first sign of difficulty. This weakens your mental endurance, and over time, you'll find that even the smallest challenge feels overwhelming. Mental endurance is about building the capacity to stay present in discomfort. It's about learning how to persist even when things aren't going your way, when you feel like giving up. The key is to not quit when the first wave of discomfort hits, but to stay just a little bit longer each time. Discomfort has levels. The initial discomfort is harmless. It's simply the body and mind adjusting to a new level of effort. When you feel the pull to quit, the urge to take a break, the mind will convince you that it's too hard. But that's not the truth. It's just resistance. Resistance to change, resistance to progress. If you give in to that resistance, you reinforce the idea that discomfort is dangerous. But if you push through, you teach your mind that discomfort is just part of the process and that it can be survived. Every time you stay, you build resilience, the power of repetition. Mental endurance doesn't come from one big, heroic effort. It doesn't come from pushing yourself to the extreme once and then calling it a day. Mental endurance is built through repetition. It's the consistent choice to show up even when it's hard, even when you don't feel like it, even when your body and mind scream for relief. You build endurance the same way you build muscle, through repeated exposure to resistance. Small daily challenges that you choose not to avoid, little discomforts that you endure. Over time, those discomforts build your capacity. The longer you stay in discomfort, the more resilient you become. The truth about quitting. Here's the thing about quitting. It feels easier in the moment. The mind will tell you it's okay to stop, that there's no need to push through this. It will give you every excuse to quit, but quitting is a habit. And the more you quit, the more it becomes your default. Mental endurance is built by choosing the harder path, the one that requires you to push through discomfort and keep going. It's about building a new habit. A habit of persistence, a habit of not quitting when things get tough. Focus and patience in discomfort. The more you focus on the discomfort itself, the more intense it will feel. The key to enduring discomfort is patience. Patience doesn't mean doing nothing. It means doing something despite the discomfort, waiting for it to pass instead of rushing for relief. Endurance teaches patience, the ability to keep going even when the finish line is out of sight. Patience is the quiet strength that allows you to keep moving even when the end result feels far away. When you're going through something uncomfortable, it's easy to get lost in the moment. But endurance is about zooming out, seeing the bigger picture, and knowing that the discomfort is just a moment in time. This too shall pass. The trap of seeking comfort. We're all wired to seek comfort. Our brains are constantly searching for ways to make life easier, but seeking comfort can be your downfall. If you're always chasing comfort, you're avoiding growth. The mind seeks relief, but relief isn't always the answer. Sometimes, it's the resistance that will teach you the most. Comfort zones are where dreams go to die. Growth happens when you step outside those zones, when you choose to embrace discomfort and use it to fuel your progress. It's when you step out of what feels safe and into the unknown that your true strength emerges. Endurance in small things leads to endurance in big things. Most people think mental endurance is only tested during huge challenges, but that's not true. Your endurance is built in the small things. It's in the little frustrations, the daily setbacks, the minor delays. If you can't stay composed and focused in the small, everyday discomforts, you'll never be able to handle the big moments. Start practicing mental endurance in the small things, in traffic, in long lines, in waiting rooms. These are your opportunities to train. If you can endure minor inconveniences without losing your composure, you'll be better prepared for the big challenges when they arrive. Endurance builds emotional resilience. The more you practice mental endurance, the stronger your emotional resilience becomes. When you get used to discomfort, you stop being so easily shaken by stress. The more you expose yourself to pressure, the less it will affect you. Over time, discomfort becomes familiar, and the things that once seemed overwhelming feel manageable. Emotional resilience is about maintaining your composure under pressure. When you're used to enduring difficulty, you can handle pressure without it breaking you. It's the ability to stay calm and steady when the world around you is chaotic. That kind of resilience becomes your power. Mental endurance and decision-making. Mental endurance also plays a huge role in decision-making. When you're emotionally drained, when you're tired, when you feel overwhelmed, it's easy to make impulsive decisions that you'll regret later. But when you've built mental endurance, you learn how to slow down and make better decisions. Mental endurance allows you to hold on to your clarity even when the pressure is high. You can make decisions based on reason and logic, not on emotion or fear. It gives you the space to think clearly and to take deliberate action instead of rushing into something just to relieve the discomfort. Endurance shapes your identity. The most important thing about building mental endurance is that it shapes your identity. When you consistently push through discomfort, when you train yourself to stay steady in the face of challenge, you become someone who doesn't quit. Your identity becomes rooted in resilience, and that resilience fuels everything you do. You begin to see yourself as stronger, more capable, and better prepared for whatever comes your way. Endurance becomes who you are. And that identity will carry you through the toughest times because you've learned the most important lesson. You can handle whatever life throws at you. Mental endurance is the foundation of everything else. In the next chapter, we'll explore how clarity becomes possible even in the most chaotic situations, and how building a trained mind allows you to cut through the noise and stay focused on what truly matters. Chapter 10. Think clearly in chaos. Chaos does not destroy outcomes. It only reveals how well you've prepared for them. Chaos is an inevitable part of life. It's in the noise, the confusion, the rapid changes. But while chaos may seem uncontrollable, clarity doesn't have to be. The real danger of chaos isn't the outside world. It's what happens inside your mind. Most people think chaos means external disorder. Too many tasks, too much noise, too many opinions. But chaos becomes dangerous only when it enters the mind. When it clouds your thinking, it makes your decisions feel rushed, and it prevents you from seeing the path ahead. A chaotic environment may surround you, but a chaotic mind will make you collapse under pressure. Clarity is not about having perfect conditions. It's about how you respond when conditions are far from perfect. Clarity comes from training your mind to cut through the noise, to reduce the clutter, to slow down, and to focus on what truly matters. In the middle of chaos, it's not about speed or trying to solve everything at once. It's about restraint, the ability to hold back and think clearly, even when everything is spinning around you. Most untrained minds rush in the face of chaos. They try to juggle multiple things at once, gather more information, or make snap decisions hoping that clarity will suddenly appear. But it won't. Rushing only creates more noise. A trained mind does the opposite. It slows down, it observes, it narrows its focus and simplifies what needs to be done. This ability to pause amidst the storm is what separates those who survive from those who collapse under pressure. It's the difference between the person who reacts impulsively and the person who remains calm, collected, and ready to make deliberate decisions. Clear thinking comes from the ability to resist urgency. When chaos strikes, everything feels urgent. Everything demands your immediate attention. People scream for answers, decisions have to be made now, and the pressure to act can be overwhelming. But clarity doesn't emerge from urgency. It emerges from restraint, the choice to not immediately react. The most common mistake in chaotic situations is to act too quickly. The pressure builds, and so you try to solve everything as fast as you can, hoping that speed will give you control. But in reality, speed without clarity is dangerous. Most bad decisions are made quickly, without thinking deeply. They are reactions, not responses. Focus, depth, and simplicity, the keys to clarity. When everything around you is chaotic, the first thing you need to do is eliminate distractions. You can't focus if you're being pulled in every direction. The untrained mind tends to jump from one task to another, trying to solve everything at once, increasing cognitive load and narrowing the focus. But clarity comes from depth, not breadth. Clear thinking requires focus, focusing on one thing at a time, eliminating unnecessary information, and focusing on what's truly important. This is where clarity thrives, in simplicity. Chaos breeds complexity, but a trained mind sees through that complexity, reduces it, and focuses on the core issues that need attention. The power of observation and restraint. The key to maintaining clarity in chaos is observation. This might sound simple, but in a world where everyone is in a rush to act, pausing to observe is a radical act. By observing, you give yourself the space to decide, not to react. You create the ability to separate yourself from the situation, to understand it more clearly. When you observe, you create a buffer between stimulus and response. This pause allows you to make a more informed decision. You're no longer acting out of impulse. You're acting from a place of intention. This is where mental training pays off. Observation under pressure is a skill. It's something that's built by consistently resisting the urge to act impulsively, by training yourself to slow down, even when every part of you is telling you to move faster. Cutting through the noise. Another crucial part of clarity in chaos is the ability to cut through the noise. Chaos is full of distractions, people telling you what to do, information flooding your senses, pressure from all sides. If you give in to every distraction, you'll never see clearly. To maintain clarity, you must limit the inputs. In chaotic situations, your brain craves data. It wants answers, and it wants them now. But what happens when you consume too much information? It makes everything more confusing. Noise increases and clarity fades. Clear thinkers know this. They actively reduce the noise. They limit their inputs and focus only on the information that truly moves them forward. They don't waste mental energy on things that don't matter. Understanding your emotional state in chaos. Strong emotions distort perception. Fear amplifies threats, anger narrows your options, excitement hides risks. These emotions cloud clarity. When emotions run unchecked, they hijack your decision-making process and lead to poor choices. The key is not to suppress these emotions, but to acknowledge them without letting them control you. A trained mind knows how to recognize and label emotions without allowing them to dominate your interpretation of the situation. For example, you might feel fear, but it doesn't mean you need to retreat. You might feel anxiety, but it doesn't mean you need to act impulsively. You feel it, but you don't let it dictate your actions. You can pause, observe, and respond calmly instead of reacting from emotion. Resisting the temptation to rush. In chaotic moments, the desire to rush to a conclusion can feel overwhelming. The faster you act, the more in control you feel, but rushing leads to mistakes. It cuts you off from the opportunity to process the situation carefully. Rushing leads to misinterpretation, bad decisions, and worse outcomes. Clear thinkers know when to wait and when to act. They have patience in the midst of chaos. Waiting isn't the same as being passive. It's active observation. It's staying present in the uncertainty, not forcing a solution before it's clear. Clarity in chaos is about choosing your responses, not your reactions. You can't control the chaos around you. You can only control how you respond. Clarity comes from the ability to choose your response, not to react immediately to the circumstances. You can choose to pause when chaos feels overwhelming. You can choose to breathe before making a decision. You can choose to think deeply, even when everyone else is rushing. When you learn to choose your responses, instead of reacting on impulse, you create space in your mind. This space is where clarity lives. It's where you can make better decisions, where you can see the situation with a calm perspective. Clarity as a competitive advantage. In life, clarity is a competitive advantage. When everyone around you is overwhelmed, you are the person who can remain calm. While others panic, you stay focused. While others rush, you act with intention. This steadiness creates confidence and trust. Others will respect you because they know you have the ability to remain calm under pressure, and that trust becomes a powerful influence. As you continue training your mind, remember that clarity doesn't come from perfect conditions. It's the ability to create clarity in the middle of chaos that sets you apart. Next, we'll explore how mastering your self-talk shapes your identity and fortifies your mental strength. Chapter 11. Train your self-talk. Your mind never stops speaking. It's a constant stream of commentary that runs through every moment of your life. It narrates your actions. It explains your failures. It predicts your future. The voice in your head is a powerful force, and it's influencing everything you do, whether you realize it or not. Most people never question that voice. They assume it's telling the truth. The truth is, that voice is often anything but reliable. Your self-talk is not commentary, it's instruction. It's shaping how you respond to pressure, how you act when things get tough, and how you deal with setbacks. The problem with untrained self-talk is chaotic. It's emotional. It exaggerates, it generalizes, it dramatizes everything. I always mess this up. This is impossible. I'm not built for this. Phrases like this are common, but they poison your action. They collapse effort before it even starts. When your self-talk is weak, your behavior follows. It leads you to doubt yourself, to hesitate, and to give up prematurely. The key to mastering self-talk, precision over positivity. Training your self-talk is not about being constantly positive. It's about being precise. A trained mind doesn't speak in absolutes, it speaks in instructions. This is uncomfortable, but it's not dangerous. This requires patience, but it's not impossible. These shifts matter. They reframe your perspective. They direct your energy toward execution, not escape. Untrained self-talk often focuses on how you feel. A trained mind shifts its focus to what's required. This distinction is vital. The language you use creates your reality. If your inner voice is chaotic, your mind becomes chaotic. If your inner voice is calm, clear, and focused, your actions follow suit. The power of internal leadership. Your self-talk is a form of internal leadership. The way you speak to yourself shapes your behavior, and your behavior shapes your future. Self-talk isn't about affirmations or wishful thinking. It's about leading your mind with precision and clarity, especially in moments of stress. When you repeatedly tell yourself you are reactive, you will react. When you repeatedly tell yourself you are disciplined, you will find disciplined behavior. This is not affirmation, it's conditioning. Your mind believes what you repeat, especially under stress. When pressure hits, it's your rehearsed language that takes over, not positive thinking. How negative self-talk sabotages you. Consider the effect of negative self-talk in moments of difficulty. When things go wrong, your first instinct is often to attack yourself. I knew this would happen. Why do I always mess this up? I'm not good enough. These thoughts make failure personal. They don't just describe a setback, they attack your identity. They reinforce the belief that you're incapable of handling challenges. A trained mind separates performance from identity. You don't insult yourself for mistakes. You correct the behavior and move forward. Correction moves you forward. Self-insult only holds you back. Training your inner voice. Training your self-talk starts by noticing the tone of your inner voice. Is it harsh, impatient, or defeated? Tone sets the emotional direction. A harsh tone creates tension. An impatient tone creates frustration. A defeated tone drains your energy. The goal is to make your inner voice neutral and firm. It should guide you without being too soft or too hard. Instead of saying, I can't do this, it says, this is challenging, but I can handle it. Instead of saying, I'm not good enough, it says, I'm learning, I will get better. The impact of consistent self-talk: the more you train your self-talk, the more it becomes automatic. At first, this feels unnatural. You'll have to remind yourself to stop being dramatic, to change the language, to avoid negative assumptions. But over time, this becomes your new default. Consistency in your inner voice builds self-trust. When you trust your inner voice, you stop doubting yourself in the moment. You stop seeking external reassurance. Instead of second-guessing, you act. You make decisions confidently because you've already trained your mind to respond to challenges with clarity and precision. Self-talk during setbacks: the most important moments to train your self-talk are during setbacks. Failure doesn't define you, it provides data. It tells you what needs adjustment, not what needs to be thrown away. A trained mind asks, what went wrong? What can be improved? What stays the same? These questions create learning. Learning leads to progress, and progress leads to success. Resilience and self-talk: the voice in your head also determines your resilience. When things go wrong, your inner voice can either escalate the situation or stabilize it. Escalating language adds pressure, leading to poor decisions and more mistakes. Stabilizing language restores control, creating space for better decisions. For example, if you're behind on a project, instead of saying, I'm so far behind, I'll never catch up, you could say, I have time to choose correctly. That shift in language creates space. Space allows better decisions. This space is where you regain control. Training self-talk in the moment: self-talk training isn't something you do only during big moments. It's something you practice consistently. It's training that begins before the pressure comes, before the emotional storm hits. You train your inner voice to be steady, reliable, and grounded, so when things get tough, it doesn't betray you. It keeps you aligned with your standards. Self-talk and communication with others: your self-talk doesn't just affect you. It also shapes how you interpret others' actions. If your internal voice is defensive, you'll see threats everywhere. If your inner voice is grounded, you'll perceive situations as they truly are, without distortion. Self-talk creates clarity, not just internally, but in how you communicate with others. When you're clear in your own thoughts, you can communicate better. You can respond thoughtfully instead of reacting impulsively, and this can prevent unnecessary conflicts. The strength of silence: another powerful aspect of self-talk training is the ability to stay silent when necessary. Not every thought deserves to be voiced. Not every impulse needs to be acted on. Silence is an underappreciated tool. It helps you to conserve energy and focus on the most important thing in the moment. A trained self-talk knows when not to speak, which enhances your ability to listen, observe, and choose your words carefully. By now, you should understand how critical your inner voice is to your behavior and mental strength. The right self-talk doesn't just improve your results, it strengthens your ability to handle pressure. Next, we'll dive into how showing up no matter what is one of the most underrated skills in life, and why consistency in your actions leads to long-term success. Chapter 12. Show up no matter what. Most people don't fail because they lack talent. No, they fail because they disappear when the going gets tough. They disappear when motivation fades, when progress slows, or when effort stops feeling exciting. Showing up is the rarest skill, and it's one of the most important ones you'll ever master. It sounds simple, but showing up is not easy. It requires commitment to your goals, to your vision, and to the process, even when everything else tells you to quit. The reality of showing up: untrained minds wait for alignment. They wait for the right moment, for the perfect conditions, for confidence or motivation to kick in. They think that the only time it's okay to act is when everything feels aligned. But this is a trap. The truth is, there's no perfect time. There's no magical moment when everything will be just right. And waiting for that moment, it will only slow you down. A trained mind doesn't wait for perfect conditions. It shows up consistently. It moves on schedule, not based on mood. Schedule beats mood every time. This is where the power lies. The moment you stop debating with yourself about whether you feel ready, you gain freedom. You remove decision-making from the equation and simply do what needs to be done. no negotiation, no hesitation. Why consistency trumps motivation? When you show up consistently, you build identity. Motivation comes and goes, but identity stays. Think about it. How do you see yourself? Do you see yourself as someone who always shows up, even when it's hard, or someone who only acts when it feels good? The moment you start identifying yourself as someone who shows up no matter what, absence becomes uncomfortable. Quitting becomes foreign. That's when you create momentum. Momentum is the fuel of success. The more you show up, the easier it becomes. The longer you stay engaged, the less effort it takes to keep going. Momentum is what makes effort feel lighter over time, and the longer you show up, the more momentum you build. The power of showing up in small moments. The key to mastering the art of showing up is understanding that it's not just about big events. It's about the small, seemingly insignificant moments, the days when nothing extraordinary happens, the days when you're not feeling particularly inspired or motivated. Those are the days that matter the most, because those are the days that build the habit of showing up. When you don't feel like it, that's when you need to show up the most. When you show up on the days when it's hard, when the energy is low, that's when you reinforce your identity. You prove to yourself that you are someone who can handle discomfort, who can keep going even when things aren't easy. That's how you build resilience. Discipline versus motivation. Motivation is a powerful force, but it's unpredictable. It's not always there when you need it the most. And when motivation disappears, you'll be left with two choices: keep going or stop. The most successful people don't rely on motivation. They rely on discipline. Discipline is about doing what you said you would do, even when you don't feel like it. Discipline is about removing emotion from the equation. It's not about forcing yourself to work through burnout or exhaustion. It's about setting a standard for yourself and meeting that standard consistently, no matter the emotional weather. Showing up creates freedom. There's a freedom in showing up consistently. The freedom comes from knowing that no matter what happens in your day, you've made progress. Even if you don't see the results immediately, showing up is progress in itself. And when you show up repeatedly, the little progress adds up to something big. It compounds over time. When you show up, you stop wasting time in internal debates. You stop asking yourself, "Am I ready?" You simply act. And that freedom is priceless. You don't need motivation to act. You've trained yourself to act because it's what you do. That's your identity. You don't make excuses and you don't procrastinate. You just show up. The impact of showing up on others. Showing up consistently also shapes how others perceive you. People notice consistency. They trust people who show up. Whether it's in your personal life, at work, or in your relationships, people trust those who are reliable. They trust those who don't disappear when things get tough. They trust people who stay committed, even when they don't feel like it. In a world that's filled with uncertainty and change, reliability is a rare quality. And reliability, when backed by consistency, leads to credibility. Credibility opens doors. People are drawn to you when they know you'll always show up. They'll want to work with you, learn from you, and align themselves with you. That's the power of showing up consistently. The burden of inconsistency. Inconsistent people, on the other hand, don't build trust. They don't build momentum. And worse, they don't build reliability. Instead, they build excuses. And excuses are a slippery slope. Once you start justifying your behavior with excuses, it's a downward spiral. Excuses breed inaction. They breed hesitation. And before you know it, you're caught in a cycle of quitting. You start and stop again and again, never gaining any real ground. Inconsistent behavior leads to emotional exhaustion and eventually a lack of progress. The more you stop, the harder it becomes to start again. Consistency is more than action. Consistency is more than just showing up physically. It's also about showing up mentally. It's about staying engaged, even when you're not feeling motivated. It's about committing to the process, even when you're uncertain of the outcome. It's about maintaining focus, even when the results aren't immediate. When you show up mentally, you make the effort to remain present, even when things are hard. And mental presence is just as important as physical presence. It's the commitment to being there, in the moment, no matter what. The freedom of no excuses. The beauty of showing up is that it frees you from the need to justify yourself. You don't need to explain why you couldn't make it or why you didn't do your best. You don't need to seek external validation. Your consistency speaks for itself. When you show up, you create a track record of success. You no longer need to defend your actions. Your actions become your defense. The final truth: you show up because you can. Showing up isn't about waiting for the right time. It's about taking control of your time. It's about refusing to let external circumstances dictate your actions. You show up because you can. And the more you show up, the more you grow, the more you achieve, and the more you build a life based on reliability and consistency. The key here is that showing up is a choice. It's not dependent on how you feel in the moment. It's about understanding that you are in control of your actions, regardless of the external circumstances. By now, you should understand that showing up isn't just about motivation. It's about commitment, consistency, and discipline. When you show up consistently, you not only build momentum, but you also strengthen your identity. Next, we'll move on to Chapter 13, where we'll dive deeper into how mental endurance is built through discomfort and why staying with difficulty creates unbreakable strength. Chapter 13. Build mental endurance. Mental endurance is the ability to stay in the game when everyone else wants to quit. It's the skill to remain steady even when the going gets tough, when motivation fades, and when things don't feel easy. Endurance is not about pushing hard for a short time. It's about staying power. The most successful people aren't necessarily the ones who can push the hardest in a short burst, but the ones who can remain consistent over time, even when discomfort lingers. Discomfort is the enemy of most people. The moment it arrives, most minds begin to look for relief. We seek distractions, comforts, and easy ways out. But mental endurance doesn't look for relief. It looks for strength in discomfort. And that's where you'll find true power. The relationship between discomfort and growth. Your mind is wired to avoid discomfort. It will do anything it can to escape it. When you feel uncomfortable, it's easy to assume that something is wrong. The mind tries to convince you to quit or to take the easy route, but that's the resistance, the same resistance that shows up every time you try to grow. Resistance is not your enemy, it's your signal to keep going. It's telling you that you're pushing against your limits and that growth is on the other side. If you stop when resistance shows up, you're training your mind to give up at the first sign of difficulty. But if you stay, if you endure, you're training your mind to embrace discomfort and turn it into strength. You don't grow when you run away from discomfort. You grow when you stay in it. Endurance is built gradually. Mental endurance is like a muscle. It doesn't grow by pushing hard once and then resting. It grows gradually, with consistent, deliberate effort. You don't become mentally strong by trying to endure one heroic effort. You become strong by staying steady through repeated exposure to mild discomfort. It's not about how much discomfort you can handle in one sitting. It's about showing up consistently, even when the discomfort feels too much. Little by little, you'll build a reservoir of strength that allows you to remain focused when everything else is falling apart. How to build mental endurance. The first step in building mental endurance is to stop running from discomfort. When discomfort shows up, most people try to find relief, but relief is the enemy of endurance. Endurance comes when you stay in discomfort long enough to teach your brain that it's survivable. When you feel discomfort, instead of quitting or looking for distractions, stay with it. This doesn't mean enduring endless pain, it means staying present. In those moments of discomfort, don't rush to avoid it. Don't look for a shortcut. Just sit with the discomfort, and notice that it doesn't last forever. Over time, this will become easier. You'll train your nervous system to handle discomfort with calm and focus, and slowly the discomfort will lose its power over you. The role of patience in mental endurance. Patience is one of the most important aspects of mental endurance. When you stay patient in discomfort, you build a deep reservoir of mental strength. Patience is not about waiting passively. It's about waiting actively, holding your ground, and continuing to move forward, even when the road ahead feels long. People with endurance are not in a rush. They understand that good things take time, and they're willing to stick with the process. They don't force outcomes, and they don't expect instant results. They trust that if they keep showing up, keep doing the work, the results will come. How endurance protects you from burnout. Burnout often comes from inconsistency. You start something with excitement, but then it gets tough and you quit. After some time, you start again, only to quit once more when it gets hard. That cycle is draining. It's emotionally exhausting. Mental endurance helps you avoid this pattern. Endurance is about consistency over time. Instead of trying to force things to happen in bursts, you pace yourself. You learn to stay steady, even when things are hard. And that steadiness protects you from burnout. When you build mental endurance, you're not pushing yourself to the limit. You're finding a sustainable pace that allows you to keep going for the long haul. And when you're able to keep going, even when others burn out, you'll be ahead of the game. The power of staying present. One of the most powerful elements of mental endurance is the ability to stay present. Most people let their thoughts rush ahead to the future, imagining all the ways things could go wrong. But when you focus on the present, you cut out unnecessary worry. You realize that most of the pain comes from anticipating discomfort, not the discomfort itself. In those moments of discomfort, you don't have to push through it as fast as you can. You just need to be present, feel the discomfort, and keep going anyway. The longer you can stay present with discomfort, the more mental endurance you'll build. Endurance builds identity. Mental endurance isn't just about handling discomfort, it's about changing your identity. When you endure discomfort over time, you reinforce the belief that you are someone who can handle tough situations. You become someone who doesn't quit at the first sign of difficulty. You become someone who sticks with the process, no matter how hard it gets. This identity shift is powerful. Once you see yourself as someone who can endure anything, no challenge will seem impossible, and that mental shift will carry you through anything life throws at you. Endurance is the key to long-term success in life. There are a lot of people who try something new, get excited, and then quit when things don't work out immediately. But the ones who succeed in the long run are the ones who stay in the game. They don't quit when things get tough. They stay. Endurance is your superpower. The more you build, the stronger you become. And once you've trained your mind to endure discomfort, you'll be able to handle anything that comes your way. You'll no longer be overwhelmed by setbacks or obstacles. You'll face them with the steady confidence of someone who knows they have the strength to keep going. In the next chapter, we'll explore how to think clearly in chaos. When things feel chaotic and overwhelming, your ability to stay calm and focused will make all the difference. The trained mind is able to cut through the noise and make decisions that others might miss. This is the power of clarity in the storm. Chapter 14. Think clearly in chaos. Chaos is something everyone faces, whether it's a sudden crisis, a jam-packed schedule, or a series of unexpected problems that all seem to hit at once. In these moments, it's easy to believe that chaos destroys outcomes, but the truth is, it doesn't. What chaos does is test your ability to think clearly under pressure. Clear thinking is not a matter of intelligence, it's a matter of restraint. When the world is spinning around you, when emotions are high, and when everything is demanding your attention at once, the ability to maintain focus is what sets you apart. But how do you think clearly when the world feels like it's falling apart? How do you keep your head on straight when everything seems urgent and your mind is bombarded by distractions? Let's dive into the strategies that help you keep your clarity intact, even when everything else is in disarray. Chaos in your environment versus chaos in your mind. Most people think that chaos is all about the environment. The noise, the problems, the distractions, these are the things that create chaos, right? But in reality, chaos becomes dangerous when it enters your mind. The environment might be chaotic, but your thoughts don't have to be. A chaotic environment can still be navigated by a clear mind, but a calm environment becomes irrelevant when your mind is scattered. The trick is not to stop the chaos around you, but to control the chaos within you. When things get loud, when everything seems urgent, when your mind starts to race, this is when clarity becomes a choice. You can either get caught up in the frenzy, or you can create space for thought. Slowing down in the midst of chaos. In chaotic situations, the natural instinct is to speed up. The pressure builds, and the brain starts to think that the faster you move, the better. The problem: speed without clarity is almost always a recipe for disaster. Clear thinking comes when you slow down. You don't need to rush through decisions or bombard yourself with more information. You need to pause and allow the fog of chaos to settle. When you slow things down, you gain perspective. Instead of reacting to every stimulus you observe, you narrow your focus and make thoughtful decisions. This ability to slow down in the midst of chaos is what separates those who survive from those who collapse under pressure. When everyone else is rushing, you will be the one calmly assessing the situation, and your ability to choose wisely will give you the leverage others lack. The power of elimination: one of the most important aspects of thinking clearly in chaos is eliminating the unnecessary. When chaos is at its peak, everything feels urgent. Every thought, every task, every opinion demands your attention. But not everything is important. The key to maintaining clarity is to filter out the noise. A trained mind knows how to focus on what matters most and ignore the distractions. You cannot think clearly if you're constantly switching between tasks or reacting to every piece of information. Elimination is your best friend in chaos. Ask yourself, what is the one thing that matters most right now? When you focus on just one thing, everything else becomes secondary. Your mind is no longer overwhelmed by competing priorities. It is focused and sharp. The role of emotional regulation in clarity chaos doesn't just affect your thoughts, it affects your emotions. When things go wrong, it's easy to feel overwhelmed by anger, frustration, or fear. But if you let emotions take control, you lose your ability to think clearly. Emotional regulation is critical in moments of chaos. It's not about suppressing your emotions, it's about not letting them control you. A trained mind can feel pressure and still think clearly. It can feel fear and still make a decision. To do this, you need to practice being aware of your emotions without reacting immediately. When your body and mind are in turmoil, the first step is to acknowledge the emotion without letting it dictate your actions. For example, if you feel anger rising, don't immediately snap. Pause, take a breath. Label the emotion, acknowledge that you're feeling angry, and then choose your response. This allows you to respond thoughtfully, not impulsively. Grounding yourself in the midst of turmoil: when everything feels like it's out of control, it's easy to get swept up in the chaos. The trick is to ground yourself. Grounding means getting back to the basics of your physical being, taking a moment to center yourself before reacting. When you start to feel overwhelmed, slow your breath, relax your muscles, ground yourself in the present moment. By focusing on your physical state, you'll interrupt the mental chaos that's clouding your judgment. The more you practice grounding, the quicker you'll be able to do it in stressful situations. It will become second nature to you, and your ability to maintain clarity will be strengthened. The importance of clarity in decision-making: when chaos surrounds you, it's easy to feel like every decision is urgent, but making decisions in the heat of the moment often leads to poor outcomes. The trick to making great decisions in chaos is to slow down, take a step back, and evaluate the situation calmly. Clear decision-making is not about being faster than others. It's about being more thoughtful. In chaotic situations, the decision you make is more important than the speed at which you make it. Strategic decisions are those made with clarity, not haste. To do this, you need to eliminate distractions, calm your emotions, and focus on the most important choice. Once you make that choice, you'll feel more confident in your decision and more in control of the situation. Clarity in chaos: the key to leadership. Those who can stay clear-headed in chaos become the leaders of the moment. They are the ones who stay calm while others are panicking. They are the ones who make the right decisions, even when everything is chaotic around them. Clear thinking in chaos is a competitive advantage because it gives you the ability to control the outcome, even when the environment is unpredictable. Leadership in chaos is not about being louder, more aggressive, or more intense. It's about being steady. When you're steady in the storm, people notice. They look to you for guidance because they trust your judgment and your ability to remain calm, no matter what's happening around you. In the next chapter, we'll explore how training your self-talk can reshape your mental framework. The voice in your head is one of the most powerful tools you have, but it can also be your greatest enemy if you don't train it to serve you. Stay tuned to learn how to transform your inner dialogue from a source of stress to a source of empowerment. Chapter 15. Train your self-talk. The voice in your head is always there, narrating your every move, explaining your failures, predicting your future. Most people don't give much thought to this internal dialogue. They assume it's just commentary, something that happens automatically and that they can't control. But here's the truth. Your self-talk is not just commentary, it's instruction. It's guiding your mind, body, and behavior every single moment. The way you speak to yourself matters more than you realize. Self-talk is the lens through which you interpret the world and respond to it. It tells your nervous system how to react to situations. It influences how you handle stress, how you take action, and how you recover from failure. The power of your inner voice. Most people go through life thinking that their self-talk is just something that happens, something passive. They don't question it, but this internal voice is incredibly powerful, and the moment you realize this, you gain the ability to change your life. When your self-talk is chaotic, negative, or hostile, it creates a toxic environment inside your mind. It creates tension, stress, and doubt. This affects your actions and makes it harder to take the next step. On the other hand, when you train your self-talk to be positive, clear, and purposeful, it provides direction and clarity. It becomes the internal coach you need to succeed. Untrained self-talk. Emotional and chaotic untrained self-talk is often emotional. It exaggerates, dramatizes, and generalizes. How many times have you heard yourself say, "I always mess this up," or "this is impossible"? These phrases are natural to many people, but they do nothing but poison your efforts. They collapse your ability to perform before you even begin. An untrained mind will create excuses, amplify fear, and misinterpret challenges. It will see a minor setback as a major failure. But this reactionary self-talk doesn't serve you. It keeps you stuck in the same cycle. If you continually tell yourself you're not good enough, that you always fail, or that you can't do something, your behavior will reflect those thoughts. Your identity becomes the story you tell yourself. The shift to directed self-talk. Training your self-talk is not about blindly repeating affirmations or trying to be positive all the time. It's about being precise in how you speak to yourself. Instead of using language that reinforces doubt, you need to use language that empowers you to take action. For example, instead of saying, "I'm going to fail at this," you can shift it to, "This is challenging, but I am capable of handling it." Instead of "I can't do this," you could say, "This may be difficult, but I know I'll figure it out." These small shifts in language make a big difference in how your mind approaches challenges. Noticing the tone. The first step to training self-talk. The first step in training your self-talk is to notice how you speak to yourself. Pay attention to the tone of your inner voice. Is it harsh, impatient, or defeated? Or is it calm, firm, and encouraging? Tone matters. It sets the emotional direction of your thoughts. A harsh tone creates tension. An urgent tone creates panic. A defeated tone drains energy. On the other hand, a firm and neutral tone creates clarity. It allows you to approach challenges without unnecessary stress or drama. A trained inner voice is neither too kind nor too cruel. It's simply clear and directive. Precision over drama. In moments of stress or pressure, your mind can easily slip into drama. You'll start exaggerating the difficulty of the task, imagining worst-case scenarios, or telling yourself how much you can't handle something. This drama only increases your anxiety, and anxiety clouds judgment. Trained self-talk focuses on precision, on getting clear about what's required. Instead of saying, "This is too overwhelming," a trained voice would say, "This is complex, but I'll break it down step by step." Instead of "I can't handle this," it would say, "I am capable of dealing with what's in front of me." Training self-talk for emotional resilience. Self-talk plays a critical role in emotional regulation. When you're facing a setback, it's easy to fall into a spiral of self-criticism. "I knew this would happen," "I always mess up," or "I'm not cut out for this." These thoughts are self-destructive. They pull you deeper into negative emotions and prevent you from learning from the experience. Instead of spiraling, your trained self-talk would focus on solutions and learning. It would ask, what went wrong? What can I adjust? What remains the same? This shift in language turns failure into data, not a verdict. It removes the emotional sting of failure and turns it into a growth opportunity. From criticism to authority, training your self-talk means becoming your own authority, not your own critic. The mind naturally tends to criticize itself, especially under pressure. But internal criticism doesn't motivate, it drains energy. When your self-talk is focused on criticism, it puts you into a defensive mindset. When your self-talk is focused on instruction, it gives you the clarity and confidence to take action. Instead of berating yourself with phrases like, I should be better by now, or I can't believe I messed that up, your self-talk becomes directive. I'll fix this, or I know what needs to be done next. This shift is crucial because behavior follows identity. When you see yourself as someone who is reactive, you will react. When you see yourself as someone who is disciplined, you will naturally seek out disciplined behaviors. The power of consistency in self-talk. Another aspect of self-talk training is consistency. Many people speak to themselves differently depending on their mood. One day, they might feel positive and encouraging, and the next day, they may feel defeated and impatient. This inconsistency creates instability in your thoughts and actions. A trained inner voice is consistent, regardless of external circumstances. It does not fluctuate based on how you feel. It remains steady and firm. When you trust that your self-talk will always guide you in the same way, it becomes easier to follow. You stop doubting yourself mid-action. You stop seeking reassurance. This self-reliance is powerful. Self-talk and resilience in the face of pressure. In moments of pressure, when everything is going wrong, your inner voice is the deciding factor. If your self-talk is weak or erratic, you'll crumble. But if your self-talk is firm and clear, you will rise. The key to this is to stop fighting your emotions. Instead, observe them without letting them dictate your behavior. Acknowledging the emotion without being ruled by it is what gives you the freedom to make decisions that are aligned with your standards, not your immediate emotional state. The role of silence in self-talk. Trained self-talk also knows when silence is the most effective tool. Not every thought needs to be vocalized or acted on. Sometimes the best action is to stay silent and allow space for clarity to emerge. This doesn't mean suppressing your thoughts or emotions. It means choosing not to give every thought a voice. By staying quiet, you give yourself the space to make better decisions. Building a new identity through self-talk. By continuously training your self-talk, you create a new identity. Your inner voice shifts from one of doubt and uncertainty to one of power and control. And with this new identity, your behavior follows. Over time, your self-talk becomes less about motivation and more about reliability. You know you can count on yourself to respond in a calm, clear, and controlled way, no matter what life throws at you. As you begin to train your self-talk, you'll notice shifts in how you approach challenges and setbacks. Your self-talk will become less about what you feel and more about what's required. In the next chapter, we'll explore the importance of showing up no matter what. Consistency in your actions, even when motivation fades, is one of the greatest signs of mental strength.